And that was very good for him, you know what I mean? And everybody was envious, as I would be naturally at the time, but in reality now, obviously, I wouldn't trade it with him. Rest in peace.
At the time, it looked like success, the kind people envy. He admits he envied it himself, but distance has a way of clarifying things. Looking back now, he says quietly, there is nothing he would trade for it. Nothing. Rest in peace. For weeks, Mulholland Drive remained silent. Not the ordinary quiet of a secluded hillside, but a heavier absence, one shaped by loss. Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle had been fixtures of that canyon for decades. Their home was a gathering place, their presence part of the rhythm of the hill itself. And then, suddenly, they were gone. The silence that followed felt deliberate, almost guarded. The headlines moved quickly. Analysts speculated. Friends offered memories meant to comfort, though they only seemed to deepen the unanswered questions. Yet from the man who lived just above it all, Jack Nicholson, there was nothing. No statement. No indirect comment. No carefully sourced remark slipped to the press. Jack Nicholson has never spoken on anyone else's timetable. He has always treated life as something lived on his own terms. This was no exception. When he finally agreed to speak, it was without spectacle. No cameras, no studio lights, just a recorder on an old oak table in his dim living room as the sun lowered itself across the canyon he had called home for decades. The house carried the weight of memory, art, photographs, and the quiet accumulation of a life lived in full view, yet fiercely protected. He wore his sunglasses not to hide, but because they had long since become part of him. Time had sharpened the lines in his face, etched them deeper than fame ever could. He lifted his glass. Ice clinked softly. The pause between thoughts stretched and lingered. This was not conversation. It was reckoning. When he spoke, his voice was low, deliberate, weighted. He talked about how the world remembers Rob Reiner, the director, the legacy, the awards, the films that shaped generations. He acknowledged it without bitterness. That part, he said, was true, but it wasn't complete. What the public never saw was the silence Rob carried when he was thinking deeply, the moments when the room would still as he worked through something no one else could see. They never heard his real laugh, the one that came unguarded, unperformed, the kind that cut through everything else. And they never understood what it meant to stand beside him when things became difficult, when the certainty people associate with success began to narrow into something heavier. At that point, the tone shifted. Memory gave way to something more unsettled. This was no longer about reputation or art. It was about fatherhood, about love, about the impossible tension between seeing clearly and loving anyway. Jack does not claim to know which is worse, to recognize what is happening and feel powerless, or to refuse to see it at all. He admits only that the question has never left him. Their bond was not built in public spaces. It was forged quietly, under pressure, during the making of A Few Good Men. Rob, he says, was an actor before he was a director. That mattered. He understood vulnerability. He understood what it meant to stand exposed, waiting to see if the words would land. He didn't command performances. He shared them. He stood inside the work, not above it. Jack recalls the intensity of those days, the repetition, the precision, the weight of every line. Rob trusted him to sit in the tension, to let it build. He didn't overdirect. He offered small, carefully chosen words, sometimes just one sentence, enough to shift the entire room. One moment, in particular, stayed with him. After a difficult take, while the set reset around them, Rob stood beside him without speaking. Then, quietly, he shared something his father had once told him, that the most dangerous people are often the most certain. It was said casually, almost gently, but it lingered. It was about the character, yes, but it was also about belief, about conviction unchecked, about the cost of certainty. From that point on, their relationship deepened. They were opposites in many ways, but they shared long conversations away from the noise. They talked about age, about the world, about their children. And it was there, in those conversations, that the difference became clear. When Rob spoke about his children, there was pride. About Jake and Romy, there was light, a sense of ease. But when he spoke about Nick, the tone changed. Not less love, more, heavier, concern threaded through affection. The kind of love that carries fear inside it. The kind that does not rest easily. Jack does not claim foresight, only experience. He has watched this city lift some children up and quietly consume others. He knows how access, attention, and comfort can erode boundaries over time. Rob and Michelle tried to guard against that. They created structure. They showed up. They were present. They did what good parents do. But even strong walls, he reflects, have cracks. The day the call came, he was home. The phone rang into a silence that felt too loud. And in that moment, before anything else could take shape, he understood that some losses do not arrive as grief. They arrive as absence, as shock, as a stillness that refuses to move. The canyon, he says, has never sounded the same since. He takes a moment before answering. This wasn't an agent or a publicist on the line. It was a friend, someone close. The voice on the other end barely held together, fragmented, strained, almost whispering. Jack shakes his head slowly as he remembers it. You don't process something like that, he says quietly. You just go still. The words came through distorted, unreal. Rob and Michelle, found in the house. Nick was there. He repeats it under his breath, as if saying it again might somehow make it make sense. At first, your mind refuses it, he explains, because the picture it creates isn't possible. It goes against everything you believe the world is supposed to be. His voice drifts, distant now. He doesn't call it grief. Not at first. Grief comes later. This was emptier. Not a wave, but a vacuum, like a door opened and all the air rushed out of the room. After the call ended, he walked onto the deck. Los Angeles stretched out below him, bright and alive. Cars still moving. A helicopter cutting through the sky. The sun burning down like nothing had changed. And I remember thinking, how, he says, how can everything keep going when the world has stopped? That, he says, is the cruelest part. The world doesn't pause for your pain. It doesn't even slow down. Jack didn't turn on the television. He didn't open a single news page. He already knew what would come next. The speculation, the headlines, the photos pulled back into circulation, people pretending to care while dissecting tragedy like entertainment. I wanted no part of it, he says. So he withdrew into the quiet of his house. A house that once carried laughter now held only memory. And in that stillness, one thought kept returning. Michelle, he says, his voice breaking for the first time. She was the steady one, the calm presence in every storm. Rob was the big heart, the loud spirit. But Michelle, Jack says softly, was the soul. Grace and strength, balanced perfectly. The kind of quiet power that keeps everything from collapsing. It's the thought of what they endured that lingers, he admits. It arrives in the still moments. The kind of darkness you can't look at directly. As details began to surface and others spoke publicly, Jack stayed silent. No statements, no appearances. I wasn't thinking like an actor, he says. I was just a man trying to understand how I lost a friend, and whether I should have seen something sooner. That question leads him back to a memory, one he's carried ever since. It was Rob's birthday, a few years earlier. A gathering at the house in Brentwood. Warm night, soft breeze, family, friends, industry faces, laughter everywhere. For a moment, everything felt right. Then Nick arrived. Jack remembers the look immediately. A restlessness behind the eyes. Not intoxication. Not chaos. Something deeper. Something unsettled. A tension that didn't know where to go, only that it needed release. I've seen that look before, Jack says. On sets. In bars. Even in myself, years ago. Later that night, he stepped inside while the party carried on outside. From the hallway, he heard raised voices. The tone stopped him cold. It was Rob and Nick, he says quietly. Nick wasn't physical. It wasn't that kind of moment. It was intensity, pressure, words loaded with resentment, about life, expectations, disappointments. Rob sat and absorbed it, saying little. Then Michelle entered. She moved between them instinctively. Calm, measured. She placed a hand on Nick's arm and said his name, just his name, with that gentleness she carried. Nick brushed her away, not forcefully, just enough to dismiss her. And that, Jack says, that's what cut through me. He remembers looking into Nick's eyes afterward. No warmth, no recognition, just emptiness. Like watching a storm pass through a person. Rob noticed Jack in the doorway. Their eyes met for a second. And in that second, Jack says, he saw everything. Fear, shame, heartbreak, and beneath it all, love. The kind of love that refuses to give up, no matter the cost. Rob gave the slightest shake of his head. Not denial, permission. So Jack turned around, walked back into the garden, acted like he hadn't seen a thing. That's my regret, he says quietly. The one that doesn't fade. He removes his sunglasses. His eyes are red now, raw. This pain isn't just loss. It's guilt. I thought I was respecting his privacy, he says. Respecting his hope. He pauses. But hope isn't a plan. Others saw signs too, he admits. Friends, colleagues, people who cared. They all noticed the smoke, but told themselves it wasn't fire. out of love, out of respect. And all we did, Jack says, was help him hold on to something that turned out to be dangerous. Now, the case moves forward. Charges, court dates, legal language that tries to impose order on something that defies it. Justice, Jack repeats. They say that word like it solves something. It doesn't bring anyone back. It doesn't repair what's been broken. What stays with him instead are the ones left behind. The children who chose grace over bitterness, who spoke of love instead of blame. That's Rob and Michelle, he says. That's how they raised them. He looks out over the city again, the same city that never stopped moving. Maybe that's the only justice there is, he says finally, that the good they put into the world doesn't die. It lives on, in the stories, the films, the people who carry their memory forward. After a long silence, Jack adds one last thing. The last time I talked to Rob, it was nothing special. Just a phone call. Sports. Movies. Life. Then Rob paused and said, "We did all right, didn't we?" Jack nods slowly. "Yeah," he whispers. "You did." Jack's mouth tightens into something like a smile. Not happiness. Recognition. "Yeah," he told Rob quietly. "It is." Then the line went dead. He rises slowly and moves toward the wide window overlooking Los Angeles. His reflection drifts across the glass, faint and unsteady. One man facing a city that once gave him everything, and took just as much back. The silence settles again. The city hums below, indifferent, unstoppable. When he finally speaks, his voice reaches the room through the glass, muted and distant. "He always looked for the good in people," Jack says. "That's what made his films work. Stories about outsiders, about friendship, about love that carried weight. He believed, truly believed, in happy endings. Not as an idea, but as a conviction." For a moment, the light catches his face, revealing the toll of years he no longer bothers to hide. He is tired, still standing, but tired. That was his gift, Jack continues. That faith, that belief that people would come through in the end. He pauses. Something hard settles behind his eyes. And that same faith, he adds quietly, was also what broke him. Rob spent his life shaping heroes and villains on screen, Jack reflects. But the real tragedy, the one no script prepares you for, is realizing too late that danger doesn't always come from the outside world. Sometimes it lives inside the walls you thought were safest. That's not a truth anyone survives intact, Jack says. Not a father, not anyone. The room holds the weight of it. No dramatic ending, no closure, just stillness. The interview ends without ceremony. A nod, a look that says enough. The door closes softly, leaving Jack alone in the house above the canyon. The shadows around him aren't the kind he's played before. They aren't roles. They're real. The ghost of a friend he couldn't save. Night settles in. The city lights below glow like a distant constellation, beautiful, unreachable, unconcerned. The recorder sits silent on the table, its red light gone. Yet the air remains charged, as if something spoken cannot be taken back. Jack stands by the fireplace, embers fading. He hasn't turned on a light. He reaches for an old photograph on the mantel. A moment frozen on a film set, Rob laughing, eyes bright with that relentless optimism. Jack beside him, caught mid-smirk. "A lifetime ago, you always said stories could save people," Jack murmurs. Then, almost to himself, "Guess you never thought yours would end like this." The phone vibrates. A short message. Simple. Reassuring. He studies the words longer than he needs to. The right thing. He isn't sure what that means anymore. At the window again, he watches the city breathe. Somewhere in the hills, a sound cuts through the quiet. Lonely, unsettled. Jack exhales and lets the moment pass. Morning comes without permission. Light slices through the canyon, sharp and unforgiving. Jack hasn't slept. The house feels heavier now, not empty, but full. Of memory, of what can't be undone. A newspaper rests on the table, unopened. He doesn't rush to it. He already knows what it contains. Headlines, timelines, language trying to impose order on something that defies it. Hollywood loves redemption, he says to no one. Second chances, rewrites. He lifts his mug. The coffee has gone cold. Real life doesn't offer that. Outside, the city looks clean, untouched. Pretending. He straightens his shoulders, not because he's ready, but because standing still feels worse. Another day begins below him. The world moves on. Jack remains where he is, carrying what it never will. He doesn't move right away. Instead, he sits there, eyes drifting across the framed photographs lining the wall. Actors, directors, musicians, faces that once meant everything in this town, now reduced to still images and fading names. This whole place is a museum, Jack mutters. Only nobody remembers what the exhibits were for. In the booth nearby, a young filmmaker leans in and whispers, "That's Jack Nicholson." The friend glances over, startled, then looks away too quickly. Jack catches it. A faint smirk crosses his face. "Don't worry, kid," he says under his breath. "I'm just another ghost now." His phone vibrates. A message from Aaron Sorkin. "They want me to consult on the documentary. Should I?" Jack studies the screen for a long moment, thumb hovering. Then he types a single word. "Yes." He leans back, exhaling slowly. For the first time in days, the weight in his shoulders eases, not gone, just lighter. Maybe some stories need to be told again, not to exploit them, but to remember. Outside, the sun dips lower, washing the pavement in gold. Jack finishes his coffee, leaves cash on the table, and stands. He looks older, undeniably, but also steadier, like someone who's finally accepted that surviving doesn't mean forgetting. He steps back into the light. Dusk settles over Los Angeles, soft and deliberate. The heat loosens its grip. Streetlights flicker on. The city trades its glare for something quieter, lonelier. Jack drives without direction, winding through canyon roads that blur the line between escape and return. He rolls the window down, letting the air rush in, dry brush, jasmine, dust. For a moment, it almost feels peaceful. Then the radio crackles. A familiar name, a familiar framing. Jack reaches out and shuts it off. "They won't let you rest," he says quietly. He pulls into an overlook he and Rob used to visit after late nights on set. The city stretches endlessly below, lights spilling all the way to the ocean. "I remember the first time we came up here," Jack says softly. "You called it a promise. I said it was a trap." He exhales. "Guess we were both right." Behind him, laughter. A couple posing for photos, capturing the skyline. Jack watches them, something tender passing through his expression. "Hold on to that," he murmurs. "This town doesn't give it back once it takes it." They leave. Silence returns. Jack lights a cigarette. The flame briefly reveals a face worn by time, but still carrying that unmistakable defiance. This time, he smiles, genuinely. "You were right about one thing, Rob," he says into the night. "We did all right." Smoke drifts into the canyon. The city hums below. Later, the night deepens. Jack stays longer than he means to, watching the glow fade and reappear. Eventually, he turns back toward the car. The phone rings. An unfamiliar number. He answers, listens, then interrupts gently. "No interviews," he says. "That story's done." He ends the call, powers the phone off, and sets it aside. Driving downhill, he passes Rob's old street. The gate is closed. The lights are gone. He slows, but doesn't stop. Some places are better left untouched. By morning, the canyon is wrapped in pale mist. Jack wakes to quiet. Coffee in hand, he steps onto the deck and looks out over the city, still shining, still pretending. For the first time in a long while, he isn't running from the past. He's letting it exist. He picks up the old photo again. Rob laughing, fully alive. "You'd hate all this noise," Jack says softly, "but it means you mattered." A breeze lifts the photo from his fingers. He lets it go, watching as it drifts into the canyon below. A clean ending. Jack takes a final breath, then turns back inside. The door closes gently behind him. Mulholland Drive falls quiet again. Not empty, at peace.